Welcome back everyone. Today, we're continuing with the next part of this series, called What If Goku Remembered the Saiyans? My name is Ash. Please, for me, drop a like and subscribe to the page. Also leave your comments down below. With that, let's begin. Raising his hands to his forehead, Cell smirked. Fine then, let's see if you can handle this. Solar flare, Cell shouted, unleashing a blinding flash of light. The intense brightness engulfed the battlefield, forcing Raditz to shield his eyes as pain seared through his vision. When the light finally subsided, Raditz blinked rapidly, trying to clear his blurred vision. His instincts screamed danger, but as he scanned the area, Cell was nowhere to be found. Damn it! Raditz growled, his frustration boiling over. Where did he go? Unbeknownst to him, Cell had submerged himself beneath the ocean, his energy suppressed to an almost undetectable level. Deep below the surface, he gazed up at Raditz's shadow above the water, a sinister grin spreading across his face. Just wait, little Saiyan, Cell thought, his tone laced with malice. Once I reach perfection, you'll learn what it means to face true power. At the lookout, the tension was equally palpable. Bulma emerged from her makeshift lab, a datapad in hand, and a grim expression on her face. I've found some answers, she announced, her tone heavy with concern. Kakarot turned to her, his brows furrowed. About what? Bulma crossed her arms, glancing at the others gathered around. About that thing we found, the egg. I analyzed the goo that was inside it, and the news isn't good. What is it? Bardock asked, stepping closer, his sharp gaze locking onto her. Bulma sighed, holding up the datapad. It's composed of genetic material from some of this world's strongest fighters. I was able to identify DNA matching both Kakarot and Bardock. There's also additional Saiyan DNA and several strains that are alien in origin. Raditz chose that moment to appear on the lookout, his expression grim. His name is Cell, he said, his tone low and serious. I fought him. His energy is strange. At times, it felt like Frieza. Other times, like Piccolo. But after he absorbed the android, he developed a unique signature of his own. Kakarot's eyes widened. He absorbed an android? Yes, Raditz said, his voice firm. He said he needed to absorb 18 and 21 to become perfect. From the way his power skyrocketed when he absorbed 17, we can't let him get to the other two. If he does, we'll have no chance of stopping him. But how do we find him if he keeps suppressing his energy like that? Bardock asked, crossing his arms as he thought about the challenge. I don't know, son, Kakarot replied, his usual lighthearted tone absent. But we can't sit around waiting for him to make the first move. The two of us need to focus on getting stronger. So when we do find him, we'll actually stand a chance. Raditz glanced at his father and younger brother, nodding grimly. We can't afford to waste time. Every moment he's out there is a step closer to him reaching his goal. Far away, Master Roshi stood on his small island, the sea breeze ruffling his robes. He had felt the brief but overwhelming clash of power earlier, the sheer scale of it leaving him uneasy. Now that everything was calm again, he turned his attention to his surroundings. Surprisingly, his home was still intact, with only a few small cracks in the ground nearby hinting at the titanic battle that had taken place. His gaze shifted to the edge of the island, where something caught his attention. A figure slumped against the sand, unmoving. As Roshi stepped closer, he realized it wasn't human. The damaged android stirred weakly, its metallic voice cutting through the silence. Help me! Roshi's brow furrowed as he cautiously approached. The machine's body was battered, its limbs barely functional. What are you? Roshi asked, his tone wary. I am Android 16, the machine replied, its tone calm despite its condition. I was created to destroy the one you know as Kakarot. Roshi took a step back, his expression darkening. Then, why would I help you? 16 looked up, its eyes glowing faintly. I only wish to destroy the one known as Cell, it said. He is a threat to all life on this planet. I have come to appreciate the beauty of Earth, and I want to protect it. If you repair me, I will fight alongside you to stop him. And what about Kakarot? Roshi pressed, his gaze narrowing. Are you still planning to go after him once Cell is gone? 16 hesitated briefly, then replied, I will restrain myself until Cell is defeated. After that, I will leave the people of this planet out of Dr. Gero's grudge against Kakarot. That is my promise. Roshi stroked his beard, his eyes narrowing as he weighed the android's words. That'll have to do, I suppose, he said at last, turning toward his house. Stay here. I know someone who can fix you up. The old master shuffled inside and reached for his phone, dialing a number with practiced precision. When the line connected, he spoke quickly. Bulma, it's me. I've got one of the androids here, and it wants to fight against Cell. Can you send someone to pick it up? Yeah, I'll send someone to get him, Bulma said over the phone. She hung up and turned back to the others gathered on the lookout. Who was that? Kakarot asked, curious. It was Roshi, Bulma replied, placing her hands on her hips. Apparently, one of the androids wants to defect and help us fight Cell. Are we sure we can trust him? Raditz asked, his tone skeptical. No, Bulma admitted, but we could use the help. Besides, I'd love the chance to study one of Gero's androids up close. It could give us valuable information about Cell and how to beat him. I'll go get him then, Kakarot said, raising 2 fingers to his forehead to use instant transmission. Wait, Bulma interjected quickly. You should stay here, Kakarot frowned. Why? I can be there and back in no time. Bulma crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow. You're the one he was programmed to kill, remember? Sending you isn't exactly the best idea. Besides, Vegeta and Piccolo will be out of the time chamber soon, and you'll need to go in after them to be ready for Cell. Or Zarbin, if he shows up. Kakarot hesitated, then let out a reluctant sigh. Fine. But who's going then? Raditz stepped forward, his expression resolute. I'll go. If the android tries anything, I'll deal with it. Meanwhile, Cell moved quietly through the ruins of Dr. Gero's hidden laboratory, his energy still completely suppressed. The dimly lit corridors were eerily silent, the hum of old machinery the only sound. Cell's piercing eyes scanned the room until they landed on his target. There, on a table in the center of the lab, lay a small, unassuming remote control. A wicked grin spread across Cell's face. Perfect, he thought. Gero kept the remote in this timeline. The device was more than just a simple shutdown mechanism for androids 18 and 21. Most importantly, it could also track them. Cell picked up the remote, turning it over in his hands. They probably don't even realize they can be found so easily, he mused. Dr. Gero had clearly anticipated the possibility of his creations going rogue, and this tool had been his insurance. But now, it would serve a far different purpose in Cell's hands. With it, he could complete his evolution, and nothing would stop him. Vegeta stepped out of the hyperbolic time chamber, his movements deliberate and his head held high. Behind him, Piccolo followed, his expression stoic, though a faint tension lingered in his features. Despite the full year they had spent training in the chamber, the strange sensation of stepping into a world where only a single day had passed still caught Vegeta slightly off guard. His mind, however, was not on the passage of time. He was focused solely on the power he had honed inside. The training had been relentless, grueling, and ruthless. Every ounce of his effort had been poured into surpassing the androids. And now, he was certain of one thing. He was ready. No, more than ready. His strength was unparalleled, and he welcomed the chance to prove it. Welcome back, Father, Celia greeted, her voice warm but with a hint of formality. Her gaze scanned Vegeta, trying to gauge how much he had changed during his time away. How was your training? Vegeta's sharp eyes turned to her briefly, his expression unreadable. It is not to be discussed, he said curtly. The last thing I need is Kakarot stealing ideas from me. Kakarot grinned, completely unfazed by the remark. Well, I hope it went well, but I think I'll manage just fine on my own. He turned to Bardock, his tone becoming more serious. Come on, Bardock. There's no time to waste. Let's get to it. Without further delay, Kakarot and Bardock entered the chamber, the massive doors shutting behind them with an ominous finality. Outside, the others quickly caught Vegeta up on what had transpired in his absence. Far across the world, Cell moved through the bustling crowd of a large shopping mall like a predator stalking its prey. His energy remained suppressed, making him invisible to anyone trying to sense him. The bio-android's every movement was calculated, his focus locked on the signal from the device he had taken from Dr. Gero's lab. Android 18 had done her best to blend in, but it didn't matter. The device had led Cell straight to her. She was close now, so close that he could almost taste the perfection he craved. 18 barely had time to register the threat before Cell struck. He moved with a speed that defied comprehension, appearing before her in an instant. She spun around, her combat instincts kicking in, but the bio-android was far too powerful. Cell! She spat, immediately leaping into an attack. Her fists blurred as she launched a flurry of strikes, each aimed with precision and power. yet every blow was blocked effortlessly. "You should have stayed hidden," Cell sneered, his voice cold and mocking. "But I suppose it wouldn't have mattered. You're mine now." 18's defiance was admirable, but futile. Cell expanded his tail, the grotesque appendage stretching unnaturally as it coiled around her. Despite her fierce struggle, she was pulled into the tail's opening, engulfed completely. Her muffled cries of resistance faded as Cell absorbed her. The transformation began immediately. Cell's energy exploded outward, the sheer force of it shattering windows and sending debris flying in every direction. People in the mall screamed and scattered, desperate to escape the chaos. His body began to shift, his roughly humanoid appearance becoming sleeker and more refined. His exoskeleton grew more streamlined, resembling a suit of armor. His face transformed, the greenish hue fading to a pale, almost human-like white. "Now that's better," Cell said, his voice richer and smoother than before. He flexed his fingers, testing his newfound power as it surged through him. The city around him trembled under the weight of his energy, and with a final surge, the force of his transformation leveled the entire area, leaving nothing but ruins. Amid the devastation, the small remote lay miraculously intact. Cell picked it up, his grin widening. "Now, to find the last one," he said, his voice brimming with anticipation. Back at the lookout, Vegeta's head snapped up as he sensed the sudden spike in power. His lips curled into a smirk. "So, it's finally happened," he said, more to himself than to the others. "What?" Piccolo asked sharply, already sensing the enormous energy signature as well. "Cell's power," Vegeta replied, his voice tinged with excitement. "It's incredible. I may actually have a challenge after all." "You fool!" Piccolo snapped, his tone laced with anger. "Don't you realize how overwhelming that power is? This isn't a game, Vegeta. That thing could destroy us all." Vegeta turned to him, his smirk deepening. "You're so blinded by your own mediocrity that you fail to see what this means. A truly powerful warrior has been born, and I will be the one to destroy him. I'll prove, once and for all, that I am the strongest in the universe." Without another word, Vegeta blasted off, a streak of light tearing across the sky as he sped towards Cell. "Are you going after him?" Celia asked Piccolo, watching Vegeta's trail vanish into the horizon. "No," Piccolo said after a moment, his expression grim. "As much as my power has grown, it's nowhere near enough to take on Cell." "What about my father?" Celia pressed. "Can he stop him?" Piccolo hesitated before answering. "He's much stronger than I am. If anyone has a chance, it's him, but I wouldn't count on it." Trunks stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Then what can we do?" Piccolo turned to him, his eyes narrowing. "We can try to stop Cell from reaching the last android. If he absorbs 21, it's over. There won't be anyone left who can stop him." "Any idea where to look?" Trunks asked. "There's a disturbance in North City," Bulma said as she walked up, holding a small portable TV. She turned it on, revealing live footage of chaos in the city. The screen showed Android 21 wreaking havoc, attacking civilians indiscriminately. "Let's go," Trunks said, determination blazing in his eyes. "Cell's on the other side of the world. We can get to 21 first. Let's just hope Vegeta buys us some time," Piccolo added, his tone somber. "I'll tell Raditz to meet you there when he gets back," Bulma said. Piccolo nodded. "Then let's move. I could use another round with Big and Ugly." Cell floated above the massive crater where a city once thrived, his arms folded behind his back, his gaze fixed on his hands. A wicked smile spread across his face as he flexed his fingers, the sheer power coursing through his body intoxicating. Every fiber of his being radiated dominance. With a single blast, he could erase the entire planet if he wished. Of course, that had been within his reach even before absorbing the androids. But that wasn't the point. Cell wanted more than mere destruction. He wanted the thrill of battle, the satisfaction of testing his might against the universe's strongest fighters. And above all else, he wanted perfection. The drive to absorb all the androids and ascend to the pinnacle of power was deeply ingrained in his very existence. Only as a perfect being would he fulfill his purpose. He glanced down at the remote still clutched in his hand. It was unscathed, remarkably intact, despite the destruction surrounding him. The smirk on his face widened. "I have you now," he murmured, his voice dripping with malice. "It's only a matter of time, 21. Before he could act further, a sharp, arrogant voice cut through the air behind him. "Not so fast!" Cell's head tilted slightly. recognizing the tone. It was cocky, self-assured, and unmistakably Saiyan. "So, you caught up?" he asked, turning with a lazy confidence. To his surprise, it wasn't Raditz he saw floating above the ruins. Instead, it was Vegeta, the Sign Prince himself. Vegeta hovered in the air, arms crossed tightly over his chest, his piercing eyes locked onto Cell. "Well, well," Cell said, his grin returning. "Vegeta, what an unexpected pleasure. So, you're the big bad bug everyone's been talking about?" Vegeta said coolly, his smirk mirroring Cell's. He tilted his head slightly, surveying the bio-android with disdain. "I can't say I'm impressed. Still as cocky as ever, I see," Cell replied, his tone amused. "Don't worry, I'll enjoy beating that arrogance out of you." Vegeta uncrossed his arms, letting them fall to his sides as he clenched his fists. "No, Cell. The only one getting beaten today is you." "Then by all means," Cell said, extending one arm in a mock gesture of invitation. "Show me what you've got. You'd better be at least as strong as that sane Raditz, or this will be over far too quickly." Vegeta let out a low growl, his smirk fading into a determined scowl. He spread his feet slightly, his aura beginning to flare as he summoned his power. His hair flickered gold, his turquoise eyes locking onto Cell. But he didn't stop there. Vegeta roared as his power continued to climb, his energy surging higher and higher. His muscles swelled, bulking up to an impressive size as his already massive power level expanded even further. The golden glow of his Super Saiyan transformation intensified, his hair standing more rigid than before. The ground below them trembled from the sheer force of his energy, the crater beneath Cell growing even deeper as Vegeta ascended to a new level of power. Cell raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed despite himself. "Impressive," he said, his voice still calm, but carrying an undertone of genuine acknowledgement. "I was expecting an easy warm-up, but it seems you might be able to give me a real fight after all." Vegeta bared his teeth in a grin. "Oh, I'll give you more than a warm-up." Without another word, he launched himself at Cell with incredible speed, the air around him cracking like thunder. On the other side of the planet, Android 21 floated above North City, laughing as he unleashed another energy blast into the crowded streets below. He could have easily destroyed the entire city with a single attack, but where was the fun in that? He preferred to pick his targets individually, watching his blasts hunt them down before detonating. The chaos and fear in the humans' faces amused him to no end. For several days now, 21 had been searching for the so-called protectors of Earth, hoping to draw them out and destroy them one by one. Yet to his annoyance, they had evaded him. But patience, he reminded himself, was a virtue. He knew it was only a matter of time before they came running to him, desperate to protect their precious humans. As he prepared another blast, his head tilted sharply and his smile faltered. He sensed a massive power level on the other side of the planet, his brow furrowed in confusion. It felt strange, like multiple energy signatures blended together into one. For a moment, he wondered if it could be some kind of fusion technique, but no, it was even stronger than that would suggest. Moments later, a second energy joined the first, and 21's eyes widened slightly. This one he recognized immediately. "Vegeta?" he muttered to himself. "How'd he get that strong?" He paused, thinking back to their last encounter. A few days ago, he wasn't anywhere near that level. What happened? "Don't worry about that," a deep, calm voice interrupted from behind 21. "You'll have plenty to worry about with me." 21 turned, his lips curling into a sly grin as he faced Piccolo. The Namekian hovered above the ruins, arms crossed, his confident gaze locked onto the android. His powerful aura radiated authority, the mark of someone who had faced countless battles and emerged stronger each time. "I've been expecting you," 21 said, his voice tinged with mockery. "Now that you've fused with Earth's guardian, I knew you wouldn't just stand back and watch while I tore this planet apart." Piccolo's eyes narrowed. "How do you know about that? How else could a Namekian gain so much power so quickly?" Zarbon's voice interjected, his elegant but sinister laugh echoing as he floated beside 21. "You slugs love fusing yourselves together, don't you? A cheap trick, but effective." Piccolo remained unfazed by the taunt. "We don't just fuse, we train," he said, his tone steady and deliberate. In a sudden burst of speed, Piccolo shot forward, closing the distance in an instant. His fist slammed into 21's stomach with a thunderous impact, driving the android backward as he gasped in pain. 21's body doubled over, blood spewing from his mouth as he staggered. What's happening? 21 thought, his mind racing. How did he get this strong? He had expected a challenge, but not this. Fusion explained Piccolo's earlier power surge, but now? This was something else entirely. Training couldn't produce results like this, not in such a short amount of time. It defied logic. Before he could recover, Piccolo pressed the attack. His fists moved like lightning, each blow precise and unrelenting. 21 tried to counter, throwing kicks and punches of his own, but to his dismay, Piccolo dodged or blocked every single strike with ease. "Is this all you've got?" Piccolo said, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I expected more from someone who calls himself the ultimate creation." Piccolo's confidence surged as he fought. For the first time in days, he felt like he had the upper hand. In the back of his mind, he could sense Vegeta's energy on the other side of the world. The Saiyan Prince's power was immense, stronger than even Cell's, which meant the android menace could be dealt with before Kakarot even finished his training. "With any luck," Piccolo said as he delivered a crushing uppercut to 21's jaw, "you androids will be scrapped by the time Kakarot walks out of the time chamber." 21 stumbled back, disoriented, when Zarbon intervened. His hands glowed with vibrant energy as he gathered power. "Not so fast!" Zarbon sneered, his smirk widening. "Beautiful assault!" The energy beam shot forward in a brilliant, spiraling column of light. Piccolo crossed his arms over his chest, bracing himself. The blast hit with a deafening explosion, the shockwave tearing through the streets and leveling nearby buildings. Smoke and dust filled the air, obscuring the battlefield. As the smoke cleared, Piccolo's silhouette emerged, completely unscathed. His green skin shimmered faintly in the aftermath of the attack. He lowered his arms and gave Zarbon a cold grin. "Is that all you've got?" he asked, his tone mocking. "I'm glad you asked," 21 said, his voice taking on a darker edge. His grin returned, but it was no longer playful. "I hate to do this, but sometimes things have to get ugly." Piccolo frowned, his sharp eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" 21's fists clenched as his entire body tensed. "Dr. Gero left one of my special talents intact when he made me an android," he said. His muscles began to bulge, swelling grotesquely as his body expanded. His elegant face twisted into something monstrous, his features warping until they were almost unrecognizable. His long hair whipped wildly around him as his energy skyrocketed, sending waves of pressure rippling outward. "You've met beauty," Zarbon said with a cruel smile. "Now, allow me to introduce you to the beast." Piccolo's confidence wavered for the first time. He gritted his teeth as he took a step back, the raw power radiating from 21, overwhelming his senses. "This wasn't part of the plan," he muttered under his breath. "How did I not see this coming?" The android's transformation was complete. His hulking frame radiated menace, and his power level had doubled, possibly more. Piccolo clenched his fists, realizing he might have underestimated his opponent. Before he could act, a streak of light shot through the sky. Trunks appeared, moving faster than the eye could follow. The young warrior landed a devastating dropkick to the back of 21's head, sending the android hurtling into the ground below. The impact created a massive crater, shaking the city like an earthquake. "About time you got here," Piccolo said, his tone sharp but laced with relief. "Sorry," Trunks replied, brushing his hair out of his face as he floated beside Piccolo. "I didn't power up to fly here like you did." Cell grunted as Vegeta launched another relentless assault. The Saiyan Prince moved with precision and raw power, hammering the bio-android with a devastating right cross, followed by a swift left uppercut aimed at Cell's midsection. The force of the blow cracked the air around them. Before Cell could recover, Vegeta spun and delivered a brutal roundhouse kick to the side of Cell's head, the impact sending him spiraling backward through the sky. Cell snarled, righting himself midair. He wasted no time countering, charging at Vegeta with ferocious speed. He drove a hard punch into Vegeta's face, his fist connecting with enough force to shatter mountains. But Vegeta barely flinched, his head snapping back only slightly before his piercing turquoise eyes locked onto Cell with a dangerous glint. "Not bad," Vegeta admitted, wiping a small smear of blood from the corner of his lip. "But you'll have to do a lot better than that." Before Cell could respond, Vegeta vanished from sight. In the blink of an eye, the Saiyan reappeared behind him, driving his knee into Cell's back with brutal force. The bio-android gasped as pain shot through his body, but Vegeta wasn't finished. He extended his leg, delivering a thunderous kick that sent Cell hurtling upward into the sky. "Try this on for size!" Vegeta roared, his voice booming across the battlefield. He extended his arms outward, golden energy crackling around his palms. The air vibrated with raw power as he gathered energy, his aura blazing brighter than ever. "Final flash!" he shouted, unleashing a massive beam of energy that surged upward towards Cell like a golden comet. Cell barely had time to react. He turned and raised his arms, crossing them in front of his body to shield himself. But the attack was overwhelming, crashing into him with unrelenting force. The explosion that followed lit up the sky, shaking the earth and leveling the already ruined landscape below. When the blinding light finally subsided, Cell floated in the air, smoke rising from his scorched body. His right arm was completely gone, reduced to nothing by Vegeta's devastating attack. "It looks like that was too much for you," Vegeta said, his arms crossed over his chest. A smug grin plastered on his face. Cell grimaced, his composure slipping for a brief moment. How? How is he this strong? A Saiyan shouldn't possess this kind of power. It was unthinkable. "How did you get so strong?" Cell demanded, his voice low and laced with frustration. Vegeta smirked, savoring the moment. "I do my sit-ups, push-ups, and drink my juice," he said sarcastically, his tone dripping with mockery. "But if you think this is strong, I'm just getting warmed up." Cell's eyes narrowed, a hint of intrigue flickering across his face. "Really? Then let's see it." With a sharp grunt, Cell's severed arm began to regenerate. Green liquid and tissue rapidly reformed until his limb was fully restored. He flexed his fingers experimentally and smirked. "Show me what else you've got." Vegeta's grin widened. He clenched his fists, his aura flaring wildly around him as he powered up again. His muscles bulged, growing even larger, pushing his physique to its absolute limit. His energy exploded outward, creating shockwaves that rippled across the battlefield. "This," Vegeta declared, his voice filled with pride, "is what I call Ultra Vegeta." His massive frame radiated golden light, his power climbing to unimaginable levels. "As you can see, you don't stand a chance against this." And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.